Hey, American Express card members, you don't want to miss this. Now through December 31st, there's a big reason for you to shop small at local stores in your neighborhood. Learn more and enroll your eligible card today at americanexpress.com/shop small offer. Terms apply.
I'm Andy Katz from ESPN, along with my co-host Seth Greenberg. On the latest edition of the ESPNU College Basketball Podcast, we are going to discuss the notice of allegations at Louisville and Seth Greenberg on a tour around the country. Go to the ESPN app and click on the headphone icon to get our podcast.
This is Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2.
Russell Waiting drove in 95 during the regular season. The 2-0, a swing and a high fly ball. That's a grand slam. And it's 7-0 Cubs here in the third.
Just looking for something out over the plate and threw it. I put a good swing on it, and it went out of here.
The use of Aroldis Chapman.
Completely disagree with the decision. Right now, I don't know if he's good more than just one inning tomorrow.
At least Chapman had to pitch. You never know. Maybe that helps us.
Now, here's Mike and Mike.
Here we are, back and better than ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And as the song says, look around at how lucky we are to be alive right now. In the same year where Peyton Manning, Sidney Crosby, and LeBron James all won championships, the best of the best on top. Now we get the piece de resistance on the back end of our sports year, Game 7 of a World Series tonight in Cleveland.
Listen, would I have loved it if Cleveland closed it out last night? Absolutely, being born and raised in Cleveland. But a Game 7 of the World Series with this storyline, obviously the main storyline being the Cubs, but as we know, the Indians, the second longest drought as well. So a Game 7, understandably, I get it's going to be fantastic, but that doesn't help the fact of how much I was yelling, somebody just catch the ball in the outfield. Just catch the ball, okay? Seriously? This goes on in Little League. Okay, call it. Wave somebody off. Call it. I got it. Mine. You got it. Yours. Something. Somebody say something. Okay, I'm done.
Well, I think that you're, first and foremost, the way you have opened the show with as sort of calm and, it's great to have a Game 7 and all of that, after the almost impossibly obnoxious tone that you took when the Indians were leading. I think I've got a message from the entire city of Chicago, and it goes like this.
You know, if I didn't get in trouble for flipping you off right now, I would do it. I mean, and I come to work this morning and I'm greeted, the first tweet I see is, hey, at ESPN Golic, 3-3, comma, fatty. I mean, what is that? I mean, what is that? 3-3, congrats to your Cubs, but now I'm fatty? I mean, seriously?
Oh, I took it to mean that was how he was celebrating the Cubs win. All right, so let's start with the play in the outfield, because you were right. These guys have been working since February in spring training, and one day when they raced out of there as fast as they could to make their tee time, they forgot to work on the center fielder calls that ball off, the right fielder makes the catch. Now, Lonnie Chisenhall, the right fielder, is the same guy who just woefully misplayed a ball in Game 3 that could have cost the Indians a game there. In this situation, miscommunication in the outfield, and instead of a 1-0 game and everything is okay,
Yep.
Instead, you start the entire night off directly behind the 8-ball. Here's Terry Francona afterwards on the misplay in the outfield.
Lonnie went hard after it, as he should. But, it's Naquin's ball. He was playing on that side, and he's a center fielder. And I think at the end there, as Lonnie was kind of pulling off, Naquin was yelling, it's yours, you got it. And it's pretty loud anyway. I think, we kind of told Nate that, especially playing on that side, that's his ball, and just take charge and take it. Kind of made it hard on Lonnie because you got to go hard until you hear something. And that was an unfortunate play because that ended up, we thought we're out of the inning with one, kind of regroup, and instead it's 3, and JT had to keep pitching.
Listen, I'm with you. I thought, okay, we're out of the inning. Thank God. 1 run, okay, nice hit by Bryant, good home run. Congrats to him. 1 zip, we can come back from that. But boy, oh boy, what and Chisenhall did go after it hard. But as Francona said, listen, I don't think many people need this explained. The center fielder makes the call. And I know it's loud in there, but you got to expect the loudness. You know, what was it, 2 innings later, a couple innings later, they almost ran into each other again. Chisenhall ended up waving off Naquin and made the catch. Naquin hit the ground, and then Kipnis was out there because it was a short fly ball. And it looked like Kipnis had to keep Naquin back. Naquin was ticked off. I'm like, are you guys kidding me? With the lack of communication out there, it was stunning. Listen, mistakes happen. Nobody plays a perfect game. You don't expect that. But on routine fly balls, you expect the play to be made. So, you know, they ended up getting 9 runs. What difference would it have been? We don't know. We absolutely don't know. The Cubs bats were on. That middle of the order was out of their mind last night, especially Bryant. So it may not have made a difference at all, but certainly at the time and watching it, getting out of that inning with only 1 run instead of 3 would have been huge.
I think it makes a difference.
Especially with the pitch count for Tomlin at that point as well.
And just everything. I think if that doesn't get in the head of a young pitcher.
I agree.
Tomlin is like 11 years old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that's got to get into the head of a young pitcher, that stuff has to play a role. There's no question that is the biggest play of the game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, a couple innings later, Russell hits a grand slam, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting that wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Right, exactly.
But you start a game off that way, and then the next thing you know, you've got, off you go. So Russell becomes the hero, extending the Cubs to a 7-0 lead in the 3rd inning. He's the second youngest player in postseason history with a grand slam. Mickey Mantle hit one at the age of 21 in 1953. Again, he gets the RBIs on that play. That play is not ruled an error.
Yeah.
So in the end, the way the game is written down, the way the scores are written down, Addison Russell winds up with 6 RBIs in the game.
Yeah.
So in the record books, it'll say that is the most in history by a player facing elimination.
Good for him. You know what? Because 10 years from now, 20 years from now, nobody's going to look. They're going to say, oh, what a game he had, and didn't realize 2 guys stood there and watched the ball drop between them.
He hit a routine fly ball in the first inning,
exactly.
And the next thing you know, away you go.
That's what happens. I mean, that's why even the most routine of play, you never know.
Yeah.
You just never know.
Yeah, so that's it's a shame that a play like that winds up being such an enormous part of the game, and then the Cubs just take over completely.
Yeah.
You mentioned Bryant, 4 for 5 with a home run. You want a number on him? He's the second player in World Series history with 4 hits and a home run when facing elimination. The only other was Willie Stargell in 1979. Get ready to spend your whole day hearing about 1979. Because 1979 and the We Are Family Pittsburgh Pirates, for those of us who remember that, were the last team to win games 6 and 7 on the road and win a World Series. Now, Game 7 home field advantage is extraordinarily significant, but the last time it happened, it went the other way.
Yep.
The last time it happened was just 2 years ago, and San Francisco and Madison Bumgarner won in Kansas City. The 9 previous Game 7s
all went to the home team.
Were won by the home team.
Yep.
The Pirates of 79 were the last ones to do it on the road. So this is going to be a day spent talking about Willie Stargell and Kent Colby and Dave Parker.
And listen, that's great to bring that up, and maybe people will go back and watch and look at highlights and read about it. That's all great stuff. But you know what? When you get when the first pitch is thrown tonight, none of that matters. None of that matters. You know, the one thing I said is I got to actually go to bed early because of what was going on. I'm a glass half full guy. You know, at least they were using up the staff last night, right? You knew Andrew Miller wasn't going to pitch. So you got Kluber. You're ready to go. You were all set the way you want to be set. Now, it's not the scenario you wanted. You would have loved to win last night and close this thing out. But if you're going to go into a Game 7, you're going to look at a glass half full. You're going to say we got Kluber on the mound and we got Miller who is ready to go. And whatever rotation Francona wants, he's going to have for this game.
And Aroldis Chapman pitched.
Yes,
and
he
pitched
did.
a lot last night, and that's a big part of the storyline this morning. It's what everyone's talking about, brought to you by Uber. Get your side hustle on. Start driving with Uber. You can earn extra cash whenever you want. Sign up today at uber.com/drive now. That's uber.com/drive now. That's a big part of the story. Let's hear some more from Terry Francona, though, because now it becomes a question of managing the 3-1 situation, right? We have to go back all the way to, June, to the last time Cleveland was in a situation, the city and the sports fans were in a situation where a 3-1 lead went the other way.
Right.
And LeBron James just spent Halloween making sure everybody remembered how he turned it around. Now you're faced with the prospect of it coming back on you. So here's your veteran manager, Terry Francona, immediately last night setting the tone.
You learn from your mistakes and then move on quickly, and we'll do that. it'll be exciting to come to the ballpark tomorrow. Shoot, I might just wear my uniform home. Might get ice cream on it, though, so maybe I better not.
Attaboy. Order some more ice cream. Get yourself ready. I mean, listen.
But he's setting a relaxed, humorous tone.
Here's what always happens. I don't care what sport you're in the postseason. And this always happens when you get in the postseason in football. Now, it's one game, but you move on to the next round. What happens less and less in the postseason is getting uptight or being critical, right? Certainly you have to talk about the mistake that was in the outfield, but, you explain it in a way, and nobody's getting read the riot act. Those two out there know they made a mistake. That's one of the big differences of the regular season and the postseason. In the regular season, you get reamed out for a lot of things. In the postseason, basically the manager or coach, depending on your sport, is like, there's no real reason to do that now, right? Because we have another game. So there's no reason to. Now, in football, if you lose and it's over and your season ends, you can have at what you want to have at. But in series sports like baseball, there's no need to read the riot act to anybody. At this point, everybody knows the mistakes you made. It's all about the keeping it positive, the positive spin, the glass half full, the relaxed atmosphere. You have Kluber, you got Miller, you got Allen, you got everybody you need for the pitching. So you want to talk about, do the Cubs have momentum winning 2 straight? Certainly you'd think they'd have momentum, but also on the mound for the Indians is Corey Kluber, who won game 1 and won game 4. So and is the ace and is pitching well, and everybody knows what Miller has done as well, and you can bring him in at any time. So I still think the Indian players and the fans have to feel good about that. Now, you go to the first inning and all of a sudden Kluber starts getting knocked around. Well, that changes, but that's what happens. My point is, going into the first pitch, I don't think there's any kind of doom and gloom, because the Indians, for all that has happened, still are in this game basically loaded how they want to be loaded.
Absolutely. Aside from Kluber being on back-to-back short rest.
Right.
You could not otherwise have drawn it up any better. And who knows how he'll react to that. Quick correction, Josh Tomlin is 32 years old. It's funny. I read all those stories this weekend about him and his dad and this horrible illness that his father suffered.
I did not know he was 32 either.
Neither did I. For some reason, I was my apologies. I thought he was much younger than that. He is 32 years old.
That, the kid on, is it Merritt? Is that his, who looks like he's 11? He's the
kid
11.
who pitched in the clinching game against Toronto.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I thought he was much younger than that. The point was the same, that I think that when you have that kind of a misplay in the outfield, when you think you're out of an inning, no matter how old you are, it's going to affect the pitcher. But clearly, I thought he was a younger guy. He for those of you who don't know the story, this is the reason that I've read so much about him. His father suffered some horrible illness earlier this year, which has left him paralyzed. And the game that he pitched at Wrigley Field, which was the Friday night game, so that was game 3, was his father was in attendance, and and I was there.
And he was there again last night.
I was reading all those stories about him. So for whatever reason, I thought he was younger. Neither of those is the point.
Right.
The point is, I do believe that. I don't think that this has always been my belief as a sports fan. You can never assume anything would have happened the same if you had changed what happened before it.
Right.
I'm not saying that the Indians win the game if it's 1-0 after the first inning, but I think that sets things going in a bad direction.
It very well could. I mean, it was all coming up Cubs last night, I guess, until you got into the 7th and you saw Aroldis Chapman come strolling onto the mound and you thought, wait a minute.
So let's get to that.
Yeah.
What did you think of that? So
surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, Sunday was Sunday, right? He threw 42 pitches. Last night he threw 20. It's not like he threw 40 pitches again. And so it's 42 pitches, a day off, and then 20 pitches. But I'm not going to lie. Just as I was saying for Cleveland, well, they're not going to use the guys that they normally use. They get them all for Game 7. I naturally assumed the same thing about the Cubs with Aroldis Chapman. I said, well, they're not going to have to use him either, and he'll be ready to go whenever you need him if you want him in the 7th inning in Game 7 again. Turns out it was a 7th inning in Game 6. So, listen, Joe Madden knows more baseball than I do, but I'm sure I've heard our baseball guys be critical of it, some and some not. I was surprised. I did not see that coming.
Here's one who is. It's Eduardo Perez.
Completely disagree with the decision. You have a 5-run lead and you're bringing in your best pitcher. 1, it sends a message to the rest of the bullpen that you don't trust them. 2, what the other thing it does, now you show him fatigue. And he threw 42 pitches 2 nights ago, went 2 2/3 innings, which is the longest in his career, almost gets hurt on this play. And then you're using a pitcher that's not a finesse pitcher. This is a power pitcher. Yes, he's going to say he's ready for it tomorrow because it's Game 7. Yes, mentally he's going to be there. But you saw the ill effects of the wear and tear going into the 9th inning. He could not locate well. This is going to continue for tomorrow, and it's a big question mark. When do you use him? You could have had him for multiple innings tomorrow. Right now, I don't know if he's good more than just one inning tomorrow, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to put a lot of pressure on a bullpen that you send a message to, that you're telling them, listen, you can't handle a 5-run lead.
Bottom line, I don't know the answer to how much you can use them. I do know adrenaline can take you so far. There's no doubt about that. And you think there's going to be a little bit of adrenaline going in Game 7. Just how much, I don't know. As I said, you go in 42 pitches Sunday and 20 again last night with a day off in between. I don't know. I would imagine, of course, Aroldis Chapman says he's going to be ready. What are you going to say? I don't think I can do this again. I mean, no, you're not going to say that. You're going to believe you can go out if the skip wants you to go out in the 7th inning, that you can go as long as he needs you to go. That's what you believe you can do. Physically, we'll see.
We will have Jesse Rogers, who covers the Cubs for us and for ESPNChicago.com, live in about 15 minutes from Cleveland, and we'll get his take on it because he's the guy who's with them literally day in and day out all season long. Chapman, of course, has only been there since mid-July, but either way, he'll get a sense of it. You'll also hear Joe Maddon explaining why he made the decision. I get it. I understand it. Here's the deal. The conversation we're having right now is one thing. The conversation we're having, if he doesn't make that decision and the heart of the Indians order comes up and all of a sudden that goes from being a 5-run game to a 2-run game and you wind up losing, is entirely different. I get shutting the door when you believe it needs to be shut, and let's live to fight and make sure we live to fight in Game 7.
I guess another thought would be, don't throw them in the 7th. See if they start to do something, maybe you can bring them in. But if they don't, and then you see, they didn't get any runs and they're not any closer, they don't have to use it at all. So
I understand that.
Give yourself a little more time to decide if you want to use him or not.
The other thing that you're doing, though, is you're presupposing that in a Game 7 situation, you're going to need him. That's sort of, to me, almost like looking at one game and saying, I'm going to save him for a place that I'm going to need him, not knowing if you're going to need him or not.
To me, when you say save someone, that's a different connotation. Like I needed him here, but I needed to save him for 7. That's the whole point. A lot of people don't think you needed him there.
Right. And Joe Maddon obviously thought he did.
Exactly right, yeah.
I mean, it's as simple as that.
Yes.
If Joe Maddon felt very comfortable that he was going to get through that without bringing him in, he wouldn't have done it.
Right.
I don't think it has to be a lot. It was a Joe Banner who yesterday said, pay no attention to what people say and just look at what they do.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. So Joe can say anything he wants. The fact that he brought Chapman in the game when he did yesterday shows you that's what he thought he needed to do to make sure he won the game.
And there are those that think it was a sledgehammer, to kill a fly instead of a fly swatter. Maybe you didn't need to do that. That's the other side of it.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. In November, Progressive will give away over 100 vehicles to veterans in need as part of the Keys to Progress program, giving thanks for the freedom they've given us. To learn more, go to progressive.com/Keys to Progress. As I mentioned, we will have Jesse Rogers coming up with us in just a few minutes from the World Series and get his take on all of this. It has been 24,859 days since the Indians last won the World Series. It has been 39,466 days since the Cubs last won the World Series. Forecast for today in Cleveland, temperatures in the 70s, no rain.
Wow.
So Game 7 of the World Series will be played today/tonight in the city of Cleveland, and one of those streaks, one that lasts almost 25,000 days or one that lasts almost 40,000 days, will come to an end.
That's so cool. I mean, tonight you're going to be hanging on every pitch, right? Every pitch.
It doesn't get any better.
No.
I mean, you could not ask for more than you were. And look, if you're a hardcore Indian fan, you didn't want to see this.
No.
You're just breaking your heart.
Right.
But generally speaking, if you appreciate sports and you appreciate the sport and you don't otherwise have a horse in the race, what a pleasure that you're going to get these two teams who are very easy to root for and a lot of fun and interesting in every single way. And you see what the ratings have been. The whole country is obviously captivated, and it culminates tonight with a Game 7.
The ratings that have gone on already, and just think what they're going to be tonight. It's not on a weekend, so no college or NFL. You have early regular season in both hockey and the NBA. So, I mean, it's already been rating great, even against football. So it should be monstrous tonight.
We will have plenty for you today. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guest coming up on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Again, Jesse from the World Series in just a couple of minutes. We will have more World Series today. Jessica Mendoza will join us, 8:30 Eastern. Dallas Braden, 9:30 Eastern. All of that and more. If you can't be with us all day, a reminder, you can listen on the app, the ESPN app. You can listen to any and all 4 hours on demand. And most importantly, Winning Word Contest continues today, 7:45 Eastern Time, 6:45 Central. We'll give you the word. We'll give you the ways to enter. And you will have the opportunity to win a trip with us to the College Football National Championship game. Speaking of which, very quickly, the big surprise last night. Right now, I'm sure you're already aware, Texas A&M was rated fourth by the committee in their first ever release, and Washington down to fifth. That was a stunner in most people's mind. Right. Now that you've had some time to digest it, super quick, Mike, do you agree or disagree with it?
I mean, it's fine. They went on strength of schedule to this point, but it means nothing. Washington takes care of business and wins. Washington will be in. If Washington goes undefeated, they will be in. And Texas A&M will a lot depends on other than that, but I'm just talking about for Washington's sake. And
correct.
We'll get more into this.
If they could add conference champion to where they were right now, they'd be ahead of Texas A&M, and that's the point.
But as we'll get into, the committee doesn't look at conference champion right now. They look at what they've done to this point. It's been a week out of conference schedule for Washington, so I get it from their criteria. But Washington fans, do not worry. Your team continues to win. It will take care of itself.
Yes, there are four teams that clearly, regardless of where they are positioned right now, the same four teams we expected to be the top four yesterday are the four teams that control their own fate.
Exactly right.
And no doubt about it. If Alabama, Michigan, Clemson, and Washington fail to lose again, there's no question those four will get in. All right, back live to the World Series in just a moment. And for those of you looking for us on TV, we are on ESPN News right now. The World Series of Poker has continued to go all night long on ESPN. The re-air of SportsCenter has bumped us from ESPN2 to ESPN News, and so you can find us on ESPN News right now on TV, as usual, always on ESPN Radio. Right now, however, a word from Tommy John. Mike, when your underwear doesn't fit right, it's not just a personal problem, it's everyone's problem. No one likes watching you readjust, so leave that to the big leaguers and make the switch to Tommy John.
Only Tommy John provides a perfect balance of support and life-changing comfort, all backed by its best pair you'll ever wear or its free guarantee. Tommy John, no adjustment needed. And right now you can save 20% on your first order with the code Mike at TommyJohn.com. That's 20% off when you use the word Mike at TommyJohn.com. That's TommyJohn.com. Back after this, Mike and Mike.
Russell Waiting drove in 95 during the regular season. The 2-0, a swing and a high fly ball. This one's hit a long way. Left center field. That's a grand slam. Russell blows it open. He's got 6 RBIs. And it's 7-0 Cubs here in the third.
A great call, as always, by our friend Dan Schulman on ESPN Radio. Again, he had 6 RBIs. He hit a routine fly ball to right field in the first inning and drove in 2 runs.
History will say 6 RBIs.
Don't take anything away from the kid, though. He's 22 years old and hit a grand slam that basically ended a World Series game, and so we get a Game 7 tonight. You'll hear it on ESPN Radio. Fox will have the TV, and our buddy Jesse Rogers will join us live right after the SportsCenter to look ahead. Alabama, no surprise, number 1 in the college football playoff rankings, followed by Clemson, Michigan, and then Texas A&M. This says Michigan State. I don't know why that is.
Well, that's not their year.
And then Tiger Woods will return at the Hero World Challenge, Mike, December 1st through the 4th in the Bahamas. It'll be his first competitive event since August of 2015. And our SportsCenter with Mike and Mike is brought to you by Pennzoil.
Pennzoil Synthetics with Pure Plus technology Make this the time for performance. College football is about protecting your turf. When it comes to protection, you can count on Pennzoil. Give your car the protection it deserves with Pennzoil Synthetics. Visit Pennzoil.com and make the switch today.
Okay, as we prepare to bring Jesse Rogers in from Cleveland, we're going to ask him why Joe Madden did what he did last night. But first, let's hear Joe Madden explaining why he did what he did last night, bringing in Aroldis Chapman in the 7th inning with a 5-run lead.
In the 7th inning there, because they came up there, the middle of the batting order was coming up, Lindor, Napoli, Ramirez possibly, all that stuff. So I thought the game could have been lost right there if we did not take care of it properly. Also, there was a threat that we would score more runs, which we did, and just did not have enough time to get Stropey warmed up after the 2-run home run by Rizzo. So when things happen that quickly sometimes, there was the day that you could just let your guy go out there and then go take him out before the next hitter, but that's not part of the landscape anymore. So we had to get him ready. So first of all, the meaty part of their batting order, if you don't get through that, there is no tomorrow. And then second of all, just trying to get Stropey ready and have Aroldis just pitch to one hitter. I think he ended up with like 20 pitches. So I don't think that was much more impactful than 16.
First and foremost, whether you agree or disagree, you want to talk about being completely open with your thinking.
That's exactly right. He said, listen, there's no sense in getting ready, trying to prepare for a Game 7 if you don't get by this game. So he wanted to shut the door. A lot of people think it was a little overkill, but so what? They won, they move on, there's a Game 7.
And he just gave you his the entirety of his thought process. So Jesse Rogers, who has covered the Cubs from day one of spring training for ESPNChicago.com, is with us live from Cleveland. Jesse, what'd you think of the decision?
I didn't have a problem with the decision, and I'm not surprised because this is what managers do in elimination games. They don't take any chances. The issue, guys, though, is going back out for the 9th inning. That's where Cub fans are wondering a little bit. He says there wasn't time. Well, in fact, after Rizzo homers to make it 9-2, nobody got up in the bullpen. Not for a few more minutes until the next batter reached base. And I guess they finally realized we've got a 7-run lead here. So Chapman has to start the 9th inning. And as you heard Madden said, it's only 4 extra pitches. But it is a warm-up again. It is going back out there. And then finally they changed him and pulled him out. But, should he have been out there for the 9th? That's the question. I mean, like he said, it's an elimination game. Maybe you should have the bullpen ready no matter what. There's a couple mop-up guys there that are probably not going to pitch tonight, and there's nothing wrong with having them ready in case you do get a bigger lead, which they did. So I don't have a problem with the 7th or 8th inning, but a lot of people are wondering why he was back out there for the 9th. Now, listen, will it affect him tonight, Aroldis Chapman? Maybe not. It's a few extra pitches. But if it does, it'll be something people look back on.
The few extra pitches in the 9th, yeah, but the 20 overall and then 42 on Sunday. So what's the talk there about how long the thought process is he could go if need be tonight?
Well, he's proven to be a little bit of a horse. I mean, we didn't know he had this in him, and so I give them a lot of credit. They're riding him, and I get that. I think he could probably give you a couple innings. But here's the thing. I think John Lester has a good chance of getting in this game as a reliever tonight in Game 7. Kyle Hendricks is going to give them everything he's got. They're going to ride him as long as they can. But I don't think that they know for sure what Chapman can give them, and that's the question mark here. 62 pitches over the course of 3 days. Of course, they had the day off in between. That was huge. I think they're going to do their best to get into the 8th inning without him. Let's put it that way.
So Kyle Hendricks goes tonight, as you mentioned. He has not pitched on the road yet in this postseason, and that obviously is by design, not by accident. If you look at his splits, he was untouchable basically at home all year long. You've been with them all season long. What do you expect from Hendricks? What have you seen all year long from him on the road, and what do you think is the expectation tonight?
I mean, he's darn good. Home or road, he still ended up with a 2.13 ERA to lead the majors. He's a mini Maddox. He really is. Ice in his veins, very unemotional. You don't know what's going on inside his head because he doesn't show it, doesn't wear it on his sleeve. When you hear John Lester be in awe of the fact that this guy can check his emotions at the door, that's pretty impressive because Lester's won a couple world championships. So I think you're going to get a great effort. I think we are setting up for an epic Game 7. Who will blink first? Because whoever blinks first, whoever can draw blood, you know they're going to their bullpen. If it's the Indians, they'll bring in Andrew Miller in the 4th or 5th inning and let him roll. If it's the Cubs, well, they've got John Lester ready, and at some point they'll go to Chapman. I think it's probably more important for the Cubs to play with the lead because we know how early Miller will come in this game. It's very early.
And as far as Kluber coming back, what's the talk as it's spinning forward to Game 7 about him and how successful he has been against the Cubs?
Well, you saw what the Cubs did against Tomlin a second time, and in fact, Kluber wasn't as sharp the second time through, but because he's so good, he still was able to hold the Cubs in check. So now it's a third time. Guys like Chris Bryant are really good when they see a pitcher a couple times, but Kluber's really good as well. The hope is he's not as sharp, and number two, just seeing him a third time will make the difference. I'd be surprised if the Cubs were held in check completely with Kluber. But again, even the smallest of leads can make the difference. This is like a 5-inning game. It really is for both teams. But probably, again, more important for the Cubs to have the lead to avoid Miller and Allen and Shaw. And those guys have been rested. They didn't pitch last night.
Mike and Mike, Jesse Rogers with us from Cleveland. Corey Kluber will look to be the 5th pitcher to win 3 starts in a single World Series, including a winner-take-all game. The last to do it was Mickey Lolich of the Tigers in 1968. The only one to win games 1, 4, and 7 in a best-of-7 World Series was Bob Gibson in 1967. Now, Kluber is good. He's not Bob Gibson.
No.
But he's really good.
Yeah, he is.
Do you hear, Jesse, any talk amongst the players about changing up a strategy, changing up a game plan, changing up anything versus what they've done against Kluber, who's allowed a total of 1 run in 12 innings in this series?
Not really, except they're trying not to swing outside the strike zone. You've seen some of the young players like Contreras and Baez swing at pitches that aren't strikes. And I'm telling you guys, I think the best thing to happen to this Cubs team is not to have home field advantage in this series. I'm dead serious about this. To win these 2 games, I think their best chance was to go back on the road. I don't think it's a coincidence that you saw a good game in their 3rd one at home, sort of finding their legs in a circus-like atmosphere, and then you see a great game at the plate yesterday. I don't think they're going to change up anything more, except try not to swing at some pitches that Kluber's going to, roll in there, curveballs outside the strike zone. Madden did not disagree. He said he didn't think about it too much, but he didn't disagree when I asked him, is this a good thing to have these 2 on the road? And he said, you know what? That's not a bad thought. It's a circus back at home. This might be a good thing for the Cubs.
Just sort of from an alleviation of pressure standpoint, I was there over the weekend, so I know what you're talking about. You mean just based on the craziness of the city and the crowd and everything else, do you think that made them tight?
I do. I think the young players, it got to them a little bit. I mean, Baez won the NLCS MVP, and then he comes out like he did. And I just don't think it's coincidence in those first 2 games. Especially the young players, they were just swinging at everything, trying to impress the crowd, get 3 hits in 1 at bat, all those cliches you hear about with young players sometimes. Slowly but surely it started to turn in that Game 5, and then you see them explode in Game 6. So, yes, from a pressure standpoint, everything else. Now, if they had to win 1 out of 2, I think being back home would be better. But to win 2 out of 2, I think the best thing was on the road.
We'll find out. And so here's Jesse Rogers from Northbrook, Illinois. Waited his whole life to see this. What do you think, Jesse? Cubs in Game 7 of the World Series.
Well, it reminds me of 2003 when they went up 3-1 and then blew it at home. I just think the momentum, it was like after Game 6 in 2003, after the Bartman game, and granted, Cleveland didn't go through that last night. Everyone in Chicago, Greeny, and you remember this, knew the Cubs were losing Game 7. I feel like it's similar. The momentum of this thing is going in their direction. But I will say, Cleveland has the advantage when it comes to their bullpen there. We know that Madden's unsure who he wants to go to besides Chapman, and Lester in a situation like that, is going to be a little dangerous in one respect for Cleveland. They're going to steal some bases. They're going to push the envelope if Lester comes in late. So Miller and Allen and Shaw, that makes a lot more sense if you're a Cleveland fan. But I still think the Cubs will get to Kluber early and hang on.
Jesse, good to have you on. Great season for the Cubs. Sorry it's going to end the way it's going to end tonight, my friend. You're going to go home in your tears again.
Thank you, Jesse. Have fun tonight.
You got it. Game 7, guys. Nothing like it.
Yeah, how lucky we are to be alive right now. Jesse Rogers on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Choose Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline for the best total engine protection you can get.
You know what's going to be key, obviously, as well tonight, and what we saw in the first couple of games is how the home plate call with Kluber.
Well, isn't that a delight?
And that I
Isn't
know
that exactly what we want to be the storyline going into Game 7.
It's not, but it is. You know that, especially with Kluber with that two-seamer, and especially on those jamming those lefties. I mean, if he gets the inside part of that plate on those lefties, man, especially, all the talk of Schwarber and the whole deal and what he can do, that's going to be a heck of a matchup.
Your reaction all morning long on Twitter, too. Keep that coming. We'll start hearing from you next on Mike and Mike after a word from Dollar Shave Club. You know we love Dollar Shave Club. They've been with us for a long time now, Mike, and the shave is fantastic.
Yep, what you may not have known is our other amazing products they have. Dollar Shave Club's got stuff for your hair, your face, for everywhere to keep you feeling and looking fresh. If you're not a member and have never joined Dollar Shave Club, now's the time. You're going to get your first month of razors for free. All you're going to do is pay for shipping, and that's just a couple of bucks. So go to dollarshaveclub.com/Mike, dollarshaveclub.com/Mike. We're back after this on Mike and Mike.
Cintas, getting you ready for the workday.
The Twitter reaction flying in through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. You know what's always in season? Surprising a friend or a loved one with a fresh bouquet from 1-800-Flowers. To get vibrant bouquets starting at $29.99, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN just to pick up on that thought as the rest of the country joins us. Jesse was just talking about momentum, and I get it sometimes when an offense gets going in baseball, almost nothing is going to stop it.
Right.
But generally speaking, this series has proved the old adage true that there's no such thing as momentum in baseball because the game is going to be completely different the following day based on the starting pitching, which is why on Sunday when it was 3-1 Indians, I thought the Cubs had an excellent chance to get to a Game 7. And tonight, if Corey Kluber was pitching on full rest, I would 100% give the edge to the Indians.
That's the biggest question mark. It's the second time on short rest in this series to see what he can do. But if he's anything close to what he can do, and the thing about it is, he doesn't have to give you 7. He doesn't have to give you 6. Quite honestly, if he can give you 4,
if he gets you into the 5th without giving up a run,
I think it would be huge.
And then you get the ball rolling with Miller, and on you go from there. So that's the beauty of this thing is, and listen, as we said, or I was talking about at the beginning of the series, the chess match element of baseball is one of the things that makes it great, and now you get to see it on full display in the biggest stage imaginable tonight, a winner-take-all Game 7 of the World Series. How will the managers, at what point? Okay, so now you've got in a scoreless game, you've got Kluber in the 5th, and he gives up a single to lead off the inning. Are you going to Miller then?
Listen, I mean,
that's my point.
Yeah.
These are the decisions the manager has to make tonight.
Francona has been making a lot of the right moves. Now, I know our buddy Rob Dibble disagreed with starting Tomlin last night. He thought Danny Salazar should have got the start last night. But you have to say that Francona's moves in the postseason have been fantastic, right? And, the guys pitching out of the bullpen have been fantastic. And that's what he's going to rely on. I mean, if you could say, listen, you wanted this to be over. If you're an Indians
wanted
fan.
It to be over,
Yes. That's what I was going to say. If you're an Indians fan, you wanted this thing done, no matter what. But now, if you could say, I can go into Game 7 with my ace and basically the studs of my bullpen all fresh and ready to go, I'd be pretty happy. Kluber not fresh and ready to go. I'm talking about the bullpen. Kluber will have to see.
He's only thrown 169 pitches in the two starts, right? 88 and 81
is what he thrown.
So, and I did that math, by the way, just on the spot there. And you know how much I struggle with math.
Wait, well, how much did you say? How many pitches did you say?
Please let me be right. 169.
Oh, I thought you said 189.
No, 169, 88, and 81.
Did he say 169 or 189?
No, I said 69.
I hope you said 189.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I know I said it. If I added it wrong, I'll admit it.
No, you added correctly to 169.
Okay.
I was hoping you said 189.
Goodness. So I don't know what to let's say this.
Yeah.
If you went back to the beginning of the postseason, the day he was going to start the playoffs against Boston, if you had said to Francona, I'll give you right now, Game 7 of the World Series with Kluber starting and your bullpen rested, he would have signed for that immediately.
Absolutely.
So I think he likes where he sits. Hendricks is a wild card because, and Jesse Rogers was just
it's amazing
talking
to
about
say
how
a
he's
wild
a kid.
card on a guy that's probably going to win the Cy Young.
But how old is he? I mean, you're talking about giving the ball to a kid in
you got
games.
Tomlin's age wrong, so I don't know if you're
that's why I'm not going to guess, but I know he's incredibly young. How old is he? So I mean, here you go. This is not John Lester, who's been there. He's 26. This is not John Lester, who's been there before. This is not Jake Arrieta, who's in his 30s and all that kind of stuff. This is a young guy. He turns 27 in December. That's older than I thought he was. Mm-hmm. We'll see. This should be. Look, it's got all the makings.
It does.
We can root for the best. Money Mike tweets, all the pressure now is on the home team. Cleveland knows better than anyone that a Game 7 is up for grabs. Mr. AD tweets, Cubs will have Lester and Lackey available out of the pen. William McClung tweets, Madden had a 7-0 lead in the game when he was in Tampa and lost 8-7. Hashtag Chapman, hashtag fly the W. So here we go. Game 7 tonight. It's as good as it gets.
I wish it wasn't due Game 7, but I'm pretty confident in who the Indians can send to the mound.
Sports Center with Mike and Mike, brought to you by Burger King. What's the best place to have your breakfast? How about on a warm croissant? Right now at Burger King, get 2 croissant breakfast sandwiches for just $4. It's a light, flaky croissant piled high with savory sausage or delicious, thick-cut smoked bacon. 2 croissant sandwiches for $4 only at Burger King. Price and participation vary. Much, much, much more baseball as we continue. Golic, I didn't give you much time to give your thoughts on the college football rankings. Again, for whatever it's worth, it's fun to talk about. It gives you something to talk about. I think we both agree it doesn't really make any difference Washington being behind Texas A&M, because if Washington wins out and they win the Pac-12 championship, they're going to jump into the top 4. But your overall thoughts on what we saw last night?
Well, I mean, we know if the undefeated teams take care of business, it's over. So the fun is then to start to look at different connotations of what goes on. If Ohio State beats Michigan, and where was Louisville going to be? We thought Louisville was going to be the first 4. Louisville would be 5 or 6. They were 7.
Right.
They were 7. Their last couple of wins have not looked good. They have a great loss. The 2 best losses out there is Clemson. Is Louisville a yard away from being in position to beat Clemson, and of course Texas A&M. Their only loss was to Alabama.
It was pretty one-sided.
Yeah, it was. It absolutely was. But if that's the only loss on your resume, it's not a bad loss. And
Penn State is ranked pretty high, and that game that Ohio State lost, and that game was lost in overtime on a blocked field goal that was run back for a touchdown. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, losing to Alabama is a more quality loss. But it was a one-sided game.
Yeah, and so if Ohio State beats Michigan, now Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State in that division have a loss, but Penn State's overall record, they have 2 losses. So Ohio State, in a head-to-head to Michigan, would
is there any question in your mind if Ohio State beats Michigan and wins the Big Ten, they get in?
They're going to get in.
Zero question.
But my question is, if other teams start to lose, does Michigan become that one-loss team? That doesn't. That's where I'm going now. That conference champ, they're going to get in. But what about a one-loss team that doesn't get to a conference championship game? If there aren't other undefeateds, like if Washington, gets a loss out in the Pac-12, I think we forget the Big 12 at this point. That's where the fun starts to begin.
All right, I'm with you. Okay, we will be moving on TV back to ESPN2 coming up off the top of the hour as the World Series of Poker has come to an end. John Gruden, much more baseball and more on the way. Mike and Mike.
When you're opening a new office location, but deadlines don't let up, you need to make sure your team can start working fast, which means all of a sudden you're looking to buy new conference tables, chairs, laptops, and whiteboards quickly. Business cards from American Express Open can give you buying power to help cover the big purchases you need to make when you need to make them. Find out how American Express cards and services can help prepare you for growth at open.com.
College football lives here. LSU is 3-0 since Ed Orgeron took over as head coach, and they've averaged over 41 points in those 3 wins.
LSU has a significant lead late.
Up next, the number 1 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide storms into Death Valley for a huge SEC showdown Saturday night.
Fumble! Alabama's got the football!
Coverage begins at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Oregon brings an offense averaging over 40 points per game into the Coliseum to face the red-hot USC Trojans. Coverage begins Saturday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio, presented by Dr. Pepper.